Welcome back. So we'll be discussing politics, and as you've seen, the Honorable Doguwa joins us this morning, former majority leader in the House of Reps, ranking member of the House of Reps, all representing Doguwa Tudunwada Federal Constituency. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for being with you this morning.
Yeah. For some days, I know you've also been keeping tabs of perspectives in Kano, even across the country. But first, if you could just give us like a broad perspective of what you think of all of these arguments making the rounds back and forth. Perhaps you start with Kano.
Let me first of all thank you for having me this morning and on this very interesting and quite exciting topic, especially when politics is going at this high level of controversies. For me, when you ask me about what's going on in Kano, the going on is usual. Kano has always been a progressive and proactive state in terms of politics of ideology. And when it comes to issues of this nature, controversies are almost the landmark of our own kind of politics. And everyone is entitled to his own opinion. You may want probably ask me probably the gubernatorial something election that is now going on in the courts. Even though I'm not a member of the bench, I'm also not a member of the bar. But as a legislator, a lawmaker, like you rightly said, for quite some years in the National Assembly, what our people maybe fail to understand, or some of our people are lacking in understanding, is that elections, especially in the democratic setting like the one we're operating in Nigeria, is always about rules of the game. It's not just about, oh, I won election. Winning election can be on court. Contesting to win an election under the set down rules and regulations as provided for in the Electoral Act and in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is also part of what you must have to abide by to win a free and fair election. So free and fair election is not about counting the ballots alone. More or less, even when the votes were counted, yet there were some votes that were said to be illegal votes. So you must have to accept the fact that yes, what obtains in our own kind of politics and in our own kind of democracy, and even beyond Nigeria, is about following the rules of the games. And the moment you breach the rules of the games, then you're offside. And the referee are there to now declare you wanting. So what is happening in Kano is a situation whereby somebody is claiming that he has won election by a majority number of votes as declared by INEC. Agreed, that was done. It happened that way because perhaps the REC or the returning officer of the gubernatorial election in Kano had the constitutional power to do that. And then after declaration, every other person is also at liberty to accept or reject the judgment of the returning officer. It's provided for in the Constitution, it's also provided for in the code of the election in the name of Electoral Act, of which we were, I was privy to drafting that legal framework. So at the end, the APC people, the APC as a party, of course, which is my own party, we took it up as enshrined in the Electoral Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, went to court, laid down our grounds that so ABCD happened. And when ABCD happens, according to the Electoral Act and the provisions of the law, then whoever was declared or whoever happened to be declared a winner of an election, then the court needed to have reviewed that thing.
So in terms of understanding the intendment of the law, that part which you quote,
yes,
where you say you need to be sure you won properly,
yes,
and not that certain things were illegal and they're counting against you, which the court eventually deducted, and then the APC candidate, etc., was declared winner. But the understanding that comes through about that is, if you look at that section where it says the ballot papers that were counted were not stamped. So then people look at it and feel, but the officials who counted them saw that these are the ballot papers we had. So the only difference there is what? Stamp. And so they counted and validated. Because they also have said there have been several scenarios where we looked at it, it's not fake ballot paper. We are the INEC officials, we supervised it, we said this was okay. And then because it didn't have the stamp, and you say signature, so it has to be invalidated. Not that the votes were not cast, but because of the stamp and the signature. That's what you refer to as it has to be what properly done.
Yes. But the fact is that INEC officials are human, they are Nigerians. And they are also expected to abide by the regulations of their conduct of elections. So even when an official comes to the court and testified that, yes, these are our original ballot papers, as long as such ballot papers do not carry the legal stamp that is supposed to be on the back and signed by the presiding officer as enshrined in the Electoral Act and, of course, in their own manual, election manual, then definitely those votes,
but was intimidate of the law is such that did it invalidate that particular ballot if it was not stamped? Did the law say it should not or shall not count?
Oh, that is what it is. That is the position of the law. As long as a ballot paper does not carry the official stamp of the INEC and signed by the presiding officer, it is clearly stated in the INEC manuals and in the Electoral Act that such votes should not count. That is the position of the law. And INEC officials know that. So in this case, it's like there was a conspiracy between the party itself, and perhaps INEC want to go ahead to perfect such conspiracy even in the court. And the judges are there to always blow the whistle. And that's what they did. And for you to understand the fact that, yes, the position of the law is that when a ballot paper is not signed and stamped, is invalid and cannot be counted, it does not count, the same judgment as taken by the trial tribunal in Kano was further upheld by the upper court, which is called the appeal court. So as long as you have two opinions, two judgments from the lower and the upper court in the appeal court, then definitely you begin to accept the fact that, oh yes, something was wrong somewhere, somehow. The law cannot be ambiguous, but you know, and the law cannot also be taken for granted
when they look at the entire picture, and then you see the elections in Kano, you see those persons who hit the streets, those people who also came out to vote, and you look at the election before this particular one, several people will then say, look, it's not that the votes were not cast. So now, I don't know if you understand why people are really angry, because they say, look, we almost clinched it in the last elections. And this time, we felt we did it. We crossed the ballot. So we have a right. It's clear that we have to be angry because maybe somebody somewhere didn't stamp in and then that invalidates our vote. Certainly, they'll feel hard done by.
In my own opinion, and for every right-thinking politician in Kano, it's not about someone is angry. If you continue to do something illegally, if you continue to cast your vote illegally, or you continue to have votes that were cast illegally, breaching the conditions of the law, if you do that 100 times, the law will always be there for you. So it doesn't matter how many times you try to get to be elected as governor through illegal means, and it does not matter how many times the court or the laws will still come to say, oh, this was wrong, this was a wrong approach. And that has to be corrected. Laws are meant to be respected. And not meant to be taken for granted. So when you when you tell me that you have people who are angry for what? Angry for casting their votes wrongly, or angry for the inaction of officials of the INEC?
How did they cast their vote wrongly?
Of course they did, because they know that voters should have been well educated to know that when you cast your vote, that vote must have been signed. You as a voter, you should know that. We have what we call voter education department in the INEC, and they have said that times without number. A special federal commissioner is there designated to educate Nigerian voters. I know for one that my vote had to be signed and stamped by the presiding officer. And I confirm that. And most of our people in the APC were of course, informed. They were informed, they were highlighted that you must ensure that your vote is valid by signing and stamping by the electoral officer.
I have never heard that, Honorable, with due respect.
Yes.
I mean, in all, because it's not only politicians, as a matter of fact,
yes,
the CSOs who engage in civic education, who engage in educating the civic populace, have never emphasized, I have never, in all of the, and one of the prominent ones is Yaga Africa, I've never even heard them say that, oh, you must make sure that your ballot is stamped and signed by an INEC official for your votes to be valid. Okay, what they focus on oftentimes is telling the populace how to vote, to be sure that their thumbprint doesn't leave a particular box, etc. It will seem that this particular rule, which APC is basing its case on, is a technicality more or less, because these ballot papers, as you have rightly admitted, came from INEC. So right now, it would seem that the electorate is given an additional burden, and this is something that INEC officials should know, that ballot papers, assuming that that is really what the law says, because from the lawyers that we've spoken to, they say that it is the result sheets that need to be stamped and signed, not necessarily the ballot papers from INEC. What do you say to that?
Oh, you said you've never heard about that.
Indeed.
And you are a member of one of the...
I'm not a member. I'm saying that...
You follow up with them. Okay, with due respect to you as well. With due respect as well, I put it to you that that is the position of the law. A voter should be well educated by his party. And every voter, every Nigerian voter is also entitled to know what the INEC official, especially the communication, media and communication department of INEC. There is a voter education department in INEC whose responsibility is to let people know what are their civic rights, what are your duties when you come to vote. And I put it to you that a responsible voter should have known that his ballot paper has to be valid by carrying the signature and stamp of the presiding officer.
Of what
and anything short of that, invalidate his vote.
May I ask you, Honorable? Yes, secondly, I know this is a law that
and secondly, madam, when you talk of technicality, technicality is also a cogent and legal ground in law. Fact could be a ground. Coincidence can be a ground, circumstantial. And also technicality is a very sound ground in law. You cannot dispute that.
No, so Honorable, while I'm not trying to...
And even when you ask me, sorry,
the idea is to raise these issues because I know that another electoral act, another amendment to our electoral act is going to happen. And yes, there will be places where people will say, of course, there are certain technical grounds that must be fulfilled. For instance, the qualification of a candidate, that should be non-negotiable. And if a candidate was not qualified ab initio, of course, all of these matters should be brought, to the premises of the court if they're in dispute. But of what effect, if you can tell the Nigerian public, is the signing of a presiding officer on a valid ballot paper?
Is to the effect of the provision of the law. Whatever the law says, and most especially the position of the law is also backed up by the manuals of INEC. And to the extent of the strength of that provision, a ballot paper that does not carry signature and stamp of the presiding officer is invalid.
No,
it's not my opinion.
The question is, what mischief is that particular part of the law trying to cure?
The mischief we intended to cure from that inaction is the fact that in some cases, in fact, in so many cases that happened in the past, you find a situation whereby politicians would come up with fake ballot papers. You can have a situation whereby some politicians can even have their way to smuggle original INEC ballot papers. In our own case in Kano, that was what happened. No, I don't want to mention names.
But the INEC official didn't say that was fake.
Oh, no.
INEC counted them. They were valid.
Oh, yes. INEC official could say so. But I, as a partisan member of the APC, I tell you that such ballot papers that were found illegal were smuggled elsewhere. Even though they were original INEC ballot
now,
papers.
If that is what it was meant to cure,
and we
are
even
you
know
saying
the
that
personality who
if an
brought them
INEC official signs a fake ballot paper, it makes it automatically valid?
Oh, naturally not. But you must also agree with the fact that as long as a paper does not emanate directly from the INEC officials, a ballot paper, no matter how genuine that paper
INEC didn't say so in this case.
Of course, they may not have said so. You expect INEC to put a knife and cut off their head when they have committed a mistake. Not even a mistake, a very costly inaction. Naturally, somebody came and smuggled fake ballot papers. We knew who did that.
Honorable.
And he was able to have his access into the Central Bank of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, got ballot papers originally for INEC, but brought them through the back door to smuggle elections. The same thing happened in the last 2019 election. I don't know why Nigerians don't want to listen to the two sides of the story.
Okay, so this
and
is
when you say people are angry about what?
This is your
These
side.
are the kind of people we call hired and rented crowd. They are merely rented to come and make noise on the street. Those of us of the APC believe that we must respect the position of the law. The police commissioner convened a meeting with both parties and urged everyone to remain calm and law-abiding. And that was why we decided not to bring our people on the street to protest as these people are protesting. As they are angry, I want to put it to you that thousands of other Nigerians in Kano are happy with the development and are happy with the judgment.
Okay, so just to say, and this conversation will soon go to my colleagues in Lagos, the NNPP, from what we understand, is a pretty popular party in Kano. Do you agree with that?
I don't want to agree with that. If it was a popular party, it should have defeated me in my own constituency, where I won for my president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in 2 local governments of my state, where I won my 2 state House of Assemblies, And I also, by God's grace, won my seat. And my senator also won my zone. So if the party is that popular,
Honorable,
it should have won my constituency.
You do know that
the constituency that have held sway for the past 32 years.
Now, while
and even in some other places where they claim to have been popular or to have won elections, they won elections through the back door by the use of fake ballot.
Do you dispute the over 900,000 votes we saw the NNPP garner in the presidential elections in Kano?
Yes. Obviously, yes. I dispute because we have proven before a court of law that some of these votes were fake. Fake because they did not emanate from the official source of INEC. Somebody, a personality, the man I'm talking knows himself. I don't want to mention him on the television, but he knows himself. Someone, because of his past relationship.
No, she's talking about the presidential election, not governorship. Was it governorship?
No,
presidential election.
No, we're basically on governorship election. We have not jumped into.
No. It was the presidential election.
And you said what?
I asked you whether you're disputing the over 900,000 votes that the NNPP garnered in Kano.
Why should I
during the presidential elections?
Not at all. I have no dispute whatsoever about our legitimate vote that we have garnered. And that has further been proven right at all levels of court judgments at the appeal court.
I said the NNPP. The NNPP.
Oh, the NNPP?
Yes.
My sister, I want to tell you whatever the NNPP garnered in the name of that election under the presidential, or even in the governorship elections, and even in other subsidiary elections like state and federal houses of assembly in Kano, were all through the back door. Those who succeeded have concluded their litigations and got away with it, fine. But I am putting it to you and to Nigerians that it was a corrupt process, very corrupt process. It was a clear-cut...
The process that brought your victory
not
was corrupt?
You are talking of the NNPP.
Yeah,
it
wasn't separate elections. It was the same elections. Everybody participated.
No, but they were able to smuggle.
You said the corrupt process.
No, I'm talking about the corrupt means they got that much of a result. The 900,000 votes you are talking about, almost 1 million votes. I am telling you, they got all such figures through the back door because they were able to have access illegally to also original ballot papers, but through illegal means.
How?
But you are not disputing the thumbprinting. You're not disputing. In the past, part of what politicians used to dispute, and we've seen forensic experts being brought into this matter, where we used to see palm kernel nuts, being used to thumbprint papers. You are not disputing the actual thumbprints because nobody could vote in this last election, from what we understand, in the presidential election, for instance, without having a valid voter's card, without having a permanent voter's card, which was accredited via the beavers. So if all of this was put in place and you're not disputing the actual thumbprint, what you're disputing is that the ballot papers were not signed. Aren't the masses really being punished for the mistake of the umpire?
Oh, of course, as long as the law provides for that, then whoever gets punished by the law is in order as far as I'm concerned.
Is it okay?
One point I would like to reiterate is the fact that as long as the provision of the law says A, B, C, D, then you have no way out to get out of it. You must abide by the position of the law, and that's all. And you remember also, our grounds of petition at the trial tribunal was not only about the stamping of the ballot papers. We have so many other grounds that were rejected by the trial tribunal. And at the appeal court, they granted us additional ground, which we cross-appealed. So part of our agitations, or part of our arguments at the trial tribunal was the fact that we raised issues where some thumb printing, if taken for forensic report, so many ballot papers were thumb printed by one person. One person will just have access to over 1,000 ballot papers.
It has not been taken for forensic. You said if taken.
If taken, but they have not been taken. Perhaps the court...
So we can't say that for sure then.
No, it's because the court did not allow us to take it for forensic. What I'm trying to say is that we had so many other grounds that we raised at the trial tribunal. Unfortunately, the trial tribunal did not grant such grounds. Even the case of his membership of a party was not granted at the trial tribunal. But the appeal court now tried it, granted it.
My colleagues have questions for you as well. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Honorable Doguwa, I'd like to, pardon me for seeming to belabor the point, on the strength of Makwe's argument that it appears that the electorate are being punished for, what should be the responsibility of INEC. Don't you think that, the justices, the panel of justices that ruled on this should have looked at it from the that point of view that INEC should take responsibility for the unstamped ballot papers, do you think that the electorate in Kano, are educated to the point that they know that they're supposed to thumbprint on stamped ballot papers and signed ballot papers by the Electoral Commission, officials of INEC? And I'm asking you this, because I want you to reflect on it from the legislative point of view, because you're a lawmaker. Yes, Honorable Doguwa, did you get the question? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, I got the point you were making. I think, like I've earlier said, madam, getting electoral punish, as long as it is a legal punishment, someone is punished legally on the point of law, for me, it doesn't matter. And in my own opinion, it's not even a punishment. It's not a punishment. I think the level of our awareness, the level of our political exposure in Kano is beyond the situation whereby you can assume that someone who is responsible enough to vote and is matured enough in this e-society that does not know what his ballot paper should take before it becomes valid. I want to say a greater number of our voters, a greater number of our citizens in Kano know clearly that a ballot paper can only be valid and be counted when it carries the signature and, of course, the stamp of the INEC. And when you are talking of perhaps probably the position of the law, of course, as a legislator, as a lawmaker, I don't want to believe that laws are 100% perfect. Going forward, perhaps the National Assembly, of which I'm a member, will look at some of these things that may likely be reviewed again from the position of perfecting our legal framework. That is one thing on the other side, on one hand, and of course, abiding by the position of the law today as it is also one thing on another. So I don't look at it as being punishing our voters or punishing our citizens.
Honorable, yes, it doesn't matter who is punished this time because it's your political party, right?
No, I don't think so.
Party
that, even if it affects my political
party, that has been favored.
Even if it's my political party, remember what happened in 2019 with Lion in Bayelsa State. My political party was at the receiving end, and we took it up. We kept it to the terms of the law because we are law-abiding. Remember what also happened in Zamfara State, where the whole state has been taken over by an opposition party that became third even in the series of the election result. We didn't argue, we didn't contend with the law. That was the position of the law. So it's not about being selfish because my political party is now at advantage side. It was at disadvantage in Zamfara 2019. My party was also at disadvantage with our popular Lion in Bayelsa State 2019. And we have accepted that legal mistake by our people, and we abided by the position of the law. What I'm trying to put across, madam, is that a law cannot be perfect, 100% perfect. And when we come across issues like this that require the need for us to perfect and review the efficacy of the legal framework, then we as legislators, of course, we are bound to do that. And Nigerians also alike, they have the opportunity to come and join the National Assembly at public hearing session to also advance their own views as to how our laws should be perfected. But the fact is that once you have a law on ground, that law was meant to be respected.
Just before we exit the matter, on the discrepancy in the certified true copy of the judgment released and what was read, is it customary to have, a difference, a contradiction in a certified true copy of the judgment from what was delivered, by the panel of justices?
Like I earlier said, I'm not a jury, but for me, it is customary because it has been anticipated by the appeal court because they have their manuals which anticipated such circumstances and provided way out. That when such circumstances come up, or when such situations arise, then the appeal court manual provides for how to get out of that. And it has been complied by. So for me, it is customary, it is possible, just like it happened this time around. And what is most important as far as that judgment is concerned was not even what came out by mistake. The most important thing is the fact that the judgment was read verbatim in the courtroom. to the hearing of the councils of the opposition and the councils of the ruling party, APC, and even the civil society people were there seated. So as long as a judgment was read out in a courtroom, verbatim, live and clear, then no other statement could come up to contradict that verbal statement or verbal pronouncement of the 3 members of the panel.
Well, Honorable, that
must have been admitted as a mistake. The appeal court admitted that as a mistake, and it remains as such. There is a provision in their manual that when such mistake occur, you sort it out this way.
All right, Honorable, if you can hear me, let's step out of the court for a moment, because there had been a violent build-up up until that election. Step out of the court, sir. No, we're in the studio, actually, Channels Television studio. So let's talk about the incidents that surrounded the election. Prior to that election, you were arrested and subsequently, taken to court on charges of homicide, violence, disruption, and the rest. It was a big one, and it followed the burning of office and the violence that we saw erupt in Kano State. So this is no news, and as you've said, sadly, this is essentially Kano politics, but it ought not to be. But speak to us about that case, those charges, homicide, disruption of the peace that were charged, put up against you. What is the state of that particular case? I understand there was an investigation done by the Inspector General of Police, or acting IGP at that time. What is the state of that case against you?
Good. This is a very good question, and I'm glad that you asked me this question live and in person. Let me say, with all sense of sincerity and with all sense of responsibility as a leader, all those things you might have had through propaganda, through malice, and through mischievous pronouncements of our opposition NNPP in Kano were baseless. Baseless because they never occurred. Unfortunately, they were more or less like the creation of the media, especially the social media. For someone like me, who has been in the House of Representatives for about 30 years, winning elections one after the other, serial elections 7 times, you wouldn't expect somebody like me to now go simply because perhaps if contesting for the 7th time, then begin to do what these people said I did. The attitude of the Onkosia people in Kano, the NNPP, has always been a violent one. If you look at this video that you have just cited on the screen, it's a video exposing or manifesting purely Konkosia views and thoughts.
But the APC too have protested and they were violent.
Let me tell you, let me go. This is a very critical question. Allow me rest, please. Very critical line on my morality and my integrity as well. So these people that you're seeing on the video, they are Konkosia people. They simply came to take over the INEC office. In fact, there are people, their own leaders directed them to burn INEC office because they knew up initio they lost the coalition at Doguwa local government, and they also lost at the Tudunwada local government, at the level of local government's level.
How do you know that directive came?
Of course, they said it. Some of these people went to court. So going further about the case was investigated by the Force Headquarters CID here in Abuja, which of course is normal. When they now went and investigated, they stayed over 26 days investigating this matter. At the end of that report, they found me not culpable. They found me they didn't indict me. Their report exonerated me, but because there was any iota of fact or truth as to the fact that yes, I was involved in a homicide case. It was on the basis of that report that the police now submitted, of course, to the law officer of the state, who was the Attorney General of the last administration in the state. The Attorney General of the state then went through the legal advice, which is the normal procedure, and found me not culpable, found me not wanting in their report, and I was exonerated by the legal advice. Some other people, especially members, thugs of the NNPP, were found wanting through verbal confession. They confessed verbally that they were directed by their leaders to come and burn INEC office. And in the course of doing that, they kept petrol in their office, which is less than 50 meters to the INEC office. In the first place, it was even wrong. You are not even allowed to have cited a political office close to INEC office. They cited political office close to INEC office less than 50 meters, simply because they were hatching and nursing this mayhem in their own mind.
But the APC government saw it and allowed it to be at the time.
No, we petitioned. We petitioned the police on that. So these people kept petrol there, and they were bringing out this petrol to burn INEC office. You can see them going around shouting, "To hell with APC, give us our..." How can you be declared winner when you lost at the 2 local governments level?
Okay, so
at the end, these people who confessed guilty, who plead guilty, were charged to court by the legal advice of the Attorney General.
Let me get this straight.
They were charged to court, and they also confessed, they pleaded guilty before a magistrate court in Kano. And they were also convicted.
Okay,
they were prosecuted and convicted.
Let me get this straight, Honorable. You were saying that the arson, the charge of arson, eventually some other people confessed to having committed that.
Oh, yes.
What about the charge of murder? Because we understand that 3 people were killed, and that you also even took your orderly's gun, pistol, and you shot somebody.
All those were the makings of the opposition NNPP. They were found not true.
Nobody died.
People died, but because they died because of the fire outbreak in their own office, which they caused by themselves, because they stored petrol there to burn INEC office. We have said this clearly. As I speak to you today, madam, I am not standing any homicide charge before any court of law in the land. I have been discharged, not guilty. I've been discharged by the legal advice. I have also been exonerated by the police. Police report.
All right, Honorable, we need to go, but let me read this to you.
I am operating as a free citizen with the fullest liberty every Nigerian could have.
The Electoral Act.
The laws did not find me wanted.
All right, so just before we go, the part that you were quoting is the Electoral Act 2022, Section 63(1). Subject to subsection 2, a ballot paper which does not bear official mark prescribed by the Commission shall not be counted. 2, if the returning officer is satisfied that the ballot paper which does not bear the official mark was from a book of ballot papers which was furnished to the presiding officer of the polling unit in which the vote was cast for use at the election in question, he or she shall, notwithstanding the absence of the official mark, count that ballot paper. Now, an unstamped and unsigned ballot papers, as we've seen here, insofar it has to be counted, insofar as it forms part of that bundle of the PU. So, to cut this long story short, Section 63 doesn't declare that ballots not stamped and signed, doesn't put it as invalid. This is to the discretion of INEC to count it or not.
You see, that might be your own interpretation of the law. You know, a law is an omnibus thing, and a law is like an ass, like people say. Let me tell you, your interpretation of the English may be different from the interpretation of the jurists.
No, but the section we read is clear enough.
Of course, but that may not be as you are seeing it in black and white. Law and legal lexicon have their own interpretations. Okay. You can be a good student in English.
Interpret section 2 for me. Let me just read it.
I am not.
If the returning officer
I am not a law interpreter. I'm a lawmaker.
It.
I am not a law interpreter. I'm only a lawmaker.
Yeah, but you understand the intent of that law, that point.
The only person that is entitled by law to interpret and implement the position of the law is the judiciary. And for me, they have done that now.
We don't see anywhere this act impose any duty on the voter to ensure that ballots are stamped and signed.
But you have
There's nowhere it's written here.
But you have seen the judiciary at the level of the tribunal accepting by clear interpretation of this position of the law, then rejecting on stamped ballot papers. You have also seen the judiciary at the appeal court also accepting that this should
the right thing not be that, fine. If in the event that we even say this is the case, shouldn't then say, look, in order for justice to be seen to have been done, go back and conduct the election.
Oh, you are not a judge.
No, I'm saying
you cannot.
I'm asking you. I'm not saying what the judge should do. I'm asking you.
The problem is
in order for justice to have been seen.
You see, the problem of issues or matters like this is that you are talking on point of laws. You, yourself, myself, we are not lawyers. We are not the judges.
No, but they also say justice must be seen to have been done.
Hold on, sir. When you are saying this thing should have been done or this thing should have been done, you are going into the court of the juries.
No. I'm going to the part where they say justice must not just be done. It must be seen to have been done. So we are the outsiders that are the ones looking to see that it's been done. So if we're looking and we're not seeing that it's been done, that's what they want to correct.
Then what if when you see, you are seeing wrongly? Your eyes are not quite clear to see clearly.
No, this is not the case here.
As far as I'm concerned, my brother, the position of the law is this. And that has been interpreted by 2 levels of courts of competent jurisdiction. Except and unless when such decisions are reversed, then you cannot begin to speak this English. What you are doing more or less now is like prejudice. You are prejudicing the position.
No, because you put it to her before that this was the position, but now we've read it to you clearly, saying there's no responsibility on the voter. It's an exclusive responsibility of INEC.
But I referred you to the manuals of INEC too.
And I'm referring to the same manual, Section 63 of the Electoral Act.
I'm also referring
to the manual.
No, the Electoral Act supersedes the manual. But don't forget, the Constitution also, the provision of the law in the Constitution supersedes the Electoral Act. And it is the Constitution that gives total powers to INEC.
What did the Constitution say about this part?
The Constitution only says the INEC is empowered to create provisions and work out modalities as to how to implement an election process.
Which they did by counting the ballots.
Which they did by coming up with a manual. And in their own manual, it says, it went further to say that a ballot paper that does not carry signature and stamp of the presiding officer is invalid. And don't forget, it is the Constitution that empowered INEC to work around and come up with modalities of election. And that is being contained in what we call the election manual.
We have to thank you for coming on, Honorable Doguwa, former majority leader in the House of Reps. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for having me on this platform.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away.